Welcome to the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. I'm Elder Michael.
And I am Officer Charmaine.
Great to have you, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to look at a very serious subject matter. I mean, all of our subject matters are very serious, but I think this one is a little bit more, what should we say, a more appealing to young people. And whenever we find a situation like that, we have to put a few corrections in and help them to understand what they're getting themselves into. We're going to be looking at ancestral worship so that our participants could have a better understanding and they can help as well in this endeavor. So, Officer Charmaine, you are the pro.
I'm so not the pro when it comes to this, but thanks for putting in my corner. Anyways, I just want to say peace, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you for coming out and joining us. Again, we're going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be a very exciting session.
That's right.
And, don't forget, this is an interactive session.
Yes.
And we want you to put your comments in the chat, speak to people, share the videos if you haven't already.
Ask questions.
Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't. And yes, welcome once again. Thank you for joining us. So, Elder Michael.
Yeah, I think what made this episode, this presentation interesting is because we found out that there were a lot of young people, especially females, who were departing, exiting.
Not just females, Elder Michael.
I know,
young,
primarily
Black females.
Okay. I don't like to use the word black. I'm sorry. I don't like to use the word black. I said so-called black.
Well, as I say, children of Jacob. So
there you go, Jacobite, children of Jacob, who were exiting Christianity, and we applaud them for that. You get an A+.
Yeah, that's as you said, Elder Michael, and I've got to reiterate what Elder Michael said because it was such a good point.
Yes,
we are so excited that everybody's exiting Christianity, but we just want to know where they're going.
Exactly, and that's where we get the hiccup situation. Because they are engaging in a lot of ancestral worship. They call it returning to their African tradition, the African heritage. And that apparently you get an F for that. And that because that is false. There's no such thing that we have an African heritage. We have an Israelite heritage.
Yes.
Get into that for days and months. But African heritage, no. That was a transitional period that we engaged in.
So why don't we have a look at the first slide, which actually shows.
Yes.
This is a very, very interesting slide, guys. And basically it shows the number of church membership. It says here that it's going down among non-Hispanic Black adults. Now, if you look at the very bottom bar, right, it says 1998 to 2000. There was about 78% Black people within the church, Black adults, right? And I'm just using the term that was actually used in the research. So, yes, okay. Now, you go to 2008 to 2010, it's gone down to 70%. Now, 2018 to 2021, it's gone down even further to 59%. So this is from 78% to 59%. So the membership has gone down among non-Hispanic Black adults from 78 to 59%. That's huge, especially given the fact that many of us, I don't know any Black person. I'm going to use the term Black. So this is a euphemism to say that any person with the same color skin as myself.
Right.
I don't know anybody growing up that did not go to church of some form or another, especially the women of the family.
That's right.
Yeah. Every single one went to church. And if they didn't go, they would send their children. So this is quite a very interesting statistic, to say the least. What do you say about that, Elder Michael?
Yeah, once again, I like to applaud them for exiting Christianity. You know, I always say um, we should not be engaging or participating in any philosophy, at least not willfully, that had a hand in our enslavement. And though there are three or four of them, there's the ones that sold us, Islam, the ones that bought us, Christianity, and the ones that financed us, Judaism, and the one that managed the whole process, which was Freemasonry. So we should not engage in any of those components. Now, if you wanted to be a Sikh, I will not recommend it, but I will say okay. Or if you wanted to be a Hindu, I will not recommend it, but if you wanted to do it, I say okay. But as far as getting involved with those that had at hand in our enslavement, absolutely not.
Right.
Those are the four that I would not recommend. And those are
Okay.
the four that a lot of our people get involved with to some extent.
We had someone who had a really nice comment just there, and
Okay.
that was from C Field. Says he's been waiting for the Professor Elder Michael and the historian Officer Charmaine. Now we're about to get to the truth. Amen to that.
But there's more to it than that. We thank you for that comment. However,
Yes.
we have to follow through on this and share
Yes.
that information so that others too could learn.
Yes.
This
Absolutely.
concept of exiting Christianity is a great concept, like I said.
It really is.
However, where they're going is something else that leaves a lot to be desired.
Yes.
If you want to talk about heritage, it's Israel, Israelite. And we're not talking Hebrew Israelites. There's no such thing. But Israel, that's us, Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. That is where you will find everything concerning your history, your culture, your spirituality, and especially your God, the name of your God, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.
Amen. But I would also add to that identity. This
Yes.
is because this is all very crucial. So why? One of the things that we've learned, and this is one of the things that I've personally learned when I first came into the nation, through one of the Elder Shadrach's teachings. I think it was during the Bible and a Black Man, or one of those seminars that was presented. And one of the things that I found out was that we as a people, I'm talking about the people that came over to the Americas by ships, the children of slavery, the Jacobites, we as a people are destined to serve. We are destined to serve. And our spirituality wants to do that. It can't help itself. We need to serve something. So, the next slide talks about seeking spirituality.
Yeah.
Right?
Before you go to that one,
Yes.
I like that comment you made. And we are destined to serve. The question is not so much serve, but whom?
Well,
Whom
well,
are
that's
we
that's
destined to serve?
that's the key, right?
Yes.
That's the
Yeah.
key point, because
Yeah.
you, if we're not serving the God of Israel, we're going to serve something,
Exactly.
somebody's,
Exactly.
somewhere, whatever it is, because
Exactly.
it's in our DNA. It's so deeply embedded to the point whereby there are so many nations. They try to do what we are doing.
Right.
They want the power that if we were doing the right thing, they want to receive that power of
Yes.
serving, but they don't want to serve our God,
Well,
right?
that's the point.
Yeah, they don't
That's
want to
the
serve
point.
our God, but they want that spiritual richness that
Right.
we currently have.
And if you know, and I know, and the rest of us, we are physical, you can imagine, like to your point, that the spirits, the familiar spirits and others, they know also.
Right.
We are destined, as you said, to serve the King of all kings, to
Mm-hmm.
serve in his court. And this is why
That's
we
where we
face,
should be serving.
that's
That's
right.
where we should be, but we have a problem. And
Yeah,
we're going to look
and we
at that.
have that destination by
Mm-hmm.
contractual arrangement, which is called our everlasting covenant. This is why we face so many challenges, because
Mm-hmm.
you cannot do as you want to do. You cannot do what pleases you. If you're the servant, you got to do what pleases the king. In this case, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And
Yes.
that's where we get off the trail and we go into other areas. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll come to the name that we are looking at specifically later.
Right. And I just want to once again welcome all those that just joined us. We
Yes.
are looking at the ancestral religion. We're looking at why so many people, especially the children of Jacob, the children of slavery, black
Yes.
people, why so many of them, especially the women, because this is a proven fact. I didn't realize the amount
Yes.
of black women, especially in the universities, they get it. They get
Virtue.
that Christianity is not the place for them to be,
Yes.
but now they are turning to the ancestral religions or
That's
the
right.
ways of worshiping, right? So they are seeking, their spirituality. And I have an analogy to go with this, but you go ahead, Elder Michael, and I'm going to go into my analogy. I think it's so cool, if I must say
Yes.
so myself.
Right. One of the so-called names that they use for this ancestral worship is called brujeria. It's a
Mm.
Spanish word. It's Brujeria, brujeria, if I
Could
pronounce
we
it.
could we go to that slide after, because there are
Yes,
so
we get
many, and
there.
we can actually point out some of those, and
Yes,
actually talk about those actual items. So we
yes,
want to, so looking at Christianity, we are saying that you're coming out of the frying pan and into the fire.
exactly.
So brujeria, which is okay, so if you go to slide number 5, but before we go into this, I just want to give an analogy,
Mhm.
right?
Go ahead.
And this is it. So imagine you look at your physical being, and we understand that our physical being is approximately 30%, the physical, right?
Yes.
And we also understand that the 70% is lent to the spiritual aspect,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So 30% physical, 70%
Spirit.
spiritual. That spiritual includes your soul and your spirit,
Yeah.
okay? You look at the earth is exactly the same way. And that's amazing. This is the God of Israel's work, right? He's
Yes.
made us like the earth that he's made. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
beautiful. So you look at the earth, it's 30% earth and 70% water.
Water.
To me, the water represents the spiritual. And
Exactly.
in that, we are in a boat, okay? When you are in the path of Israel, you have an anchor and a guide that will guide you in that spiritual realm, right? And your anchor is anchored, right, to the earth, to wherever it needs to be anchored to, right? So you have your guide, and that's great, because we need that, especially when we're communicating with our Father, because we understand that we communicate spiritually.
Mhm.
But when you don't have an anchor, you may just have a boat. You could be drifting anywhere, and that is the problem with a lot of these type of philosophies.
Philosophies,
Yeah,
man-made philosophies.
right.
Mhm.
So when we look at this slide, out of the frying pan into the fire, you're coming out of Christianity or whatever. Maybe you're coming out of something else. I don't know. But then you're going into something that is just as bad, just as detrimental. It can damage you.
But more
So
importantly than that, Officer Charmaine, that's a very good analogy. There is, if you drift, maybe someone can come to your rescue. But in this case, the
right,
entire world is against you. It's been structured in such a way. They out, as you said earlier, to get you because
right,
they want to be where you are, but they cannot measure up to your status, to our potential. And by the fact that they can't get there, they will do anything to tear us down and to destroy us because it's almost, I call it an inferiority complex. And this is part and parcel why we have to be very careful. We have to learn to stay in our own lane. And if we're exiting Christianity, that is good. Now we have to look and see where we came from initially, not where we came from on a stopover visit, so to speak, in Western Africa. We have to go back
I
to ancient land to see ancient
I have
Jerusalem.
to, yeah, I have to just say that I completely agree with Miss Angel Stark's comment. She
Yes.
said, I love being in this truth. To
Mhm.
have learned so much before COVID and seeing it now being offered to the world, I just love it.
Exactly.
Amen.
Yes.
Absolutely. We're completely with you. You know, learning is something that we all do if we understand that's what our nature is, right? It's about learning. And,
And
you know, I learn every day and I'm still
exactly.
learning. And it's just so incredible just to be able to do that. And
Right.
especially when in this truth, you know, seeing it, it's just so vibrant and so real and so powerful. And living it every day is just
That's the key.
this.
Yeah, it's unfolding. A new chapter is unfolding every day, right in front
Yes.
of us. Hey, if we did not have the scriptures, the holy scriptures, the world would mean nothing to us. But
Mm-hmm.
by, you turn on the television, you're, at least for me, I'm trying to see if what I think is going to happen has already started. I don't
Yeah.
care what they're saying on all these alphabet places. It means nothing. What
Mm.
our prophets, because they're the ones, again, this is history
Mm-hmm.
makes prophecy. And
Yeah.
our prophet said it. Now let's see what is going to unfold and become
Yeah.
history. And that's the exciting part.
So, Michael, you want to share? Why don't we share some of these terms that people may
Oh,
have
yes.
been familiar with? You know, and understanding that some of these may be related to, for example, comfort is related to Guyana and
It doesn't
Brujería
matter
is
because they
so.
all are coming from one
No,
destiny,
yeah, no,
one
that's what
origin.
I'm saying. So
Yeah,
you got these
yeah.
terms, and you may think it's a different practice because of these terms and where they are really predominant. For example, the Brujeria is supposed to be Central America. You've got the Shango, which is you'll find this in
Voodoo,
Haiti. You know,
Obia,
so
Santeria.
yes, exactly. So, but as you said, they are all coming from West Africa. They're
And
all coming
you
from
know what
those
I noticed
regions.
about them all, Officer Charmaine, and
Yes,
this could include Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Freemasonry, all of them together. They have different names, but they all lead to death. The way
yep.
they all seem as if the goal, the objective, is death, but they're not aware of this.
They have chosen death and
Yes,
they worship the dead, which
yeah,
is
or
what
the God of the
basically
dead.
this is.
Yeah,
This is worshipping of the dead.
right.
So you wanted to talk about the Brujeria, right?
Yeah, the Brujeria.
Brujeria.
Yeah,
Okay.
for the women they call Bruja, and the
Yes.
men Bruja.
Brujo.
Brujo, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
I have to get my Spanish correct. But the point is, they do all of these things. I mean, like they use art, they use drums, they use alcohol. Sometimes they drink blood. Whatever it takes, whatever that familiar spirit requires to
I
get the job done. That's what they have.
I have to say, Lakeisha, you
Yeah,
are absolutely correct.
yeah,
Witchcraft used to be taboo. Nobody wanted to be a witch. Nobody wanted to be associated with witchcraft
that's
or
right.
anything. Now people are. It's so open. Everybody's a witch. It's all over social media. You're absolutely correct. There was that movie that you liked, or that series that you liked. Sabrina.
Sabrina,
Sabrina the teenage
Harry
witch.
Potter. Harry Potter is
Harry Potter, it's huge. It's
yes,
they are all sorcery, all black magic, all it's all demonic, witchcraft, necromancy. It's all the same thing, and
yes.
each one of these had their version of that. That blood sacrifice, that worshiping. Did you know? And I was really shocked to find this out that even in places like Scotland they used to do like blood bonding. So you'll cut your arms or your wrist or something, and then you would join with another person who's
Yes,
also cut themselves, and you'll join them together. And I'm thinking that's crazy.
they did
That
the
is
same with the
absolutely
mafioso.
insane.
The
Sorry.
mafioso in Italian mafioso did the same thing. That's
Wow.
the bonding with the blood.
Yeah, it's like they're playing with blood, and it's
And
like
of
it's
course,
so.
you have to drink the alcohol after you've done that, or smoke a cigar or whatever it is you're smoking.
You
You
know, there's one of the things that we were talking about earlier, even Elder Michael and I were mentioning like yesterday, or was it this morning as
know,
well, is
yeah,
that we struggled with this research because it's so very vile. When you're watching those videos and reading
that's
about the text, and it's so very vile. And I
What
don't think people understand just
yeah,
how vile it really is.
what makes it so challenging is the fact that you could watch a movie on Netflix or wherever. You
Mm.
know, those are actors, they're doing their thing. They're getting paid to do that. Sometimes they
Yeah.
get carried away. But now when you're looking at these videos and you're seeing your own family, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
Because they all came from the same, we don't know what tribe they came from, but they came from the same Israelite nation, meaning the Jacobites, the descendants of slavery. They came
Yes.
from ancient Jerusalem by way of
Mm.
Western Africa. And they're engaging in this, and they're young people. They
Yeah.
are in their 20s or 30s, you know, and they're trying to find themselves. And this is what they end up doing. And it's devastating because if the woman goes there, the men will follow. And when the men follow, the children will follow, and so on. So we're going right back into the mud again. Another
But
400 years of slavery,
but you
more
know,
of master's whip on our backs and ignorance.
yeah.
Yeah,
But one of the things, for example, crystal healing now, it
yeah.
looks so innocent. You get these nice, pretty crystal with all the pretty colors going through them. And, I don't know what they do with them. They wear them. It's like, they chant around them, they pray to them. They have them in certain places where they use it on their altar. And I
Mhm.
think to myself, wow, it looks so pretty and so innocent, right? It's like, oh, it's just a crystal, but it's like, no, you have no idea what you're invoking, none at all, and the depth of the destruction that you're doing to your own soul or your
That's
own
right.
spirit. You
That's right.
know,
The
it's
crystal, remember that I've seen on television where they had the crystal of the skull, and
mm,
that has been used for divination. And this is way, I'm not sure if it's Babylon or Egypt. They had
mm,
about, I don't know how many of them there were, 3, 4, 7, I'm not sure.
mm,
Maybe somebody knows more about it than I do. And if you could align all 7, you could have a lot of power. But I find that
mm,
fascinating because why crystal?
mm,
There's something about crystal that has
mhm,
spiritual properties of invocation or something of that magnitude. I don't know, but I'm
mhm.
sure some of our viewers know of things about or two
Yeah,
about this.
guys. So what do you think about this? I mean, do you know anybody that's into any of these? There's comfort, there's astrology. Astrology is another one. That
Yes,
is another dangerous ground to be stepping in. It's
yes,
a lot of fun. Like, oh yeah, what sign are you? But the scripture specifically speaks against this.
yes,
Because you all of a sudden you become reliant on, oh, you can't really wake up, or you can't even get through your day without having to go to the papers to read about, what's going to happen to me today because I'm a Cancer, or I'm, Aries or something. You know, you go there and you're looking, and and you always associating it with yourself, and then before you know it, it's actually controlling your life because
exactly.
you're down because the reading is not good, and you're happy because it's good, but then it doesn't happen the way you want it. It's just insane, really.
They do.
Oh,
There are a lot of things that people don't understand. I mean, look, we have Catholic people go and worship at the Catholic altar. First of
oh
all,
my gosh, sorry.
yeah,
New Day says,
yeah,
I see that in the movies a lot, and the kids pick their fingers and join their blood in a vow or a
yes.
promise.
Oh, yeah,
Listen, guys, if this is happening, we need to talk about this, and we need to
yes.
talk to our children. Because I had no idea. That
I
is
didn't know
really
that either, but
disturbing.
I could see in
That
sports,
is
that
very
that can be
disturbing.
done because
Yeah.
they believe that by blending the blood, that they are becoming a family in that sport event, whether it's basketball or baseball or football or what have you. They don't understand the concept of blood
Mm.
in this case because it goes beyond just doing things like that. We have we use blood in the Israelite nation, but it is not like what people are talking about. We're talking about the blood of Christ. I mean, that's a whole different chapter. So it is not the physical blood, so to speak, right? He shed that blood back in the day, and we benefit from that as Israelites.
Mhm.
We are the only ones that could benefit from it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that when you read about that in the Bible, that you go and you kill a white fowl and sprinkle the blood all over the house. No, that's not what it's all about. You see, that's voodoo. What we
Yeah.
do is,
Yeah, it is seriously voodoo.
yeah,
And you know, this may work for any other nation and any other people out there. Okay, so Bella Quinn says, yes, I know some people. They are they
my
are
new
my young
cousins.
cousins, but they have no clear understanding of what they are doing. Their beliefs are luck. You know,
Wow.
that's really tragic. And you're right. You are absolutely correct. And this is why it is so important to have this conversation, because right now we're living in a society or a world where anything goes. You
Mm.
know, there is nothing anymore that is taboo. Nobody is like shocked anymore. It's like, oh, look, oh, that's happened. You know, they're fighting in the street. No one's shocked anymore. And no one's like disgusted anymore. No one turns their head away. It's like it's just normal. It's just it's crazy.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a lot going on that people, because there's drumming, there's alcohol, and others people are having the time. Just recently they had the Caribana celebrations here in Toronto, and I was telling someone they have the people on stilts dancing. So you're up 7, 12 feet, whatever. And I say to folks, that might look as it's fun and a little boy or girl looking at that. Whoa, that's cute, mommy. No, it's not. That 7-footer or 12-footer could be a demon in the spirit world. Do you
Mm.
understand? But most
Mhm.
people will see it as an entertaining factor. But
So
yeah,
so we have a comment here as well. It says you see a lot of gods that are worshipped in the different carnivals around the
exactly,
world. Just what you're saying.
exactly.
And yes, you
And
know,
once they start
carnivals,
drumming, that,
caravana, the drumming
yes,
is
you lose
key
it.
to all of this, because the
Yes,
drumming invokes spirituality. It's
you
and
communicate
again, we
with
don't
God.
know what's happening really,
Yes,
because you're out there in the seas and you don't have an anchor, so you're just floating, you know, all over.
exactly. And people,
Mhm.
that's why we need to stay in our spiritual lanes and what other people are doing when it comes to spiritual behavior. First, you have to be aware of it so that you can
This is
recognize it
another good
and you back
comment.
away from it. Yes.
Guys, yeah, so I have to agree that a lot of these comments are really very good and they're eye openers, even to myself, you know.
Yeah, yes.
Um, this, what is this one? This it says here there is witchcraft being done within religion itself,
Yes.
and you know we have to just remind everybody that when we speak of religion, there is only one religion, and that's
Exactly.
the Israelite religion.
Yes.
Everything else is a philosophy.
Philosophy.
And yes, absolutely, there are all kinds of, you know, demonic practices in a lot of these different philosophies. And, you know, we can even look at how Christianity was established. You
Yes.
know, the Catholic Church, they allowed certain things to take place, but you had Catholicism as the cover, while all these different, you know,
You
demon
know,
worshiping and what have you were
and
done.
to your point, Officer Charmaine, one of the biggest symbols of divination is the cross. That is an invocation, an instrument of invocation right there. That's an instrument of destruction. But a lot of people don't know that. And they wear it as jewelry and they do all this foolishness. You don't want to touch the cross. Where do you find the cross in abundance? You got to go to the graveyard. It's right there. Thousands of them there. Ask yourself then, why would that instrument be so prominently displayed in the graveyard? And then you go to your shrine and it's right on top of the altar. How the
Okay.
heck can you
Why don't you read this next one from G
Yes.
Payne?
Says, I had a former friend who found herself tempted to read the Bible. Tempted,
Yes.
okay. As time went on, she seemed to grow a hatred for it and never even read it. She later
Okay.
told me that she was building a shrine for ancestors. Well, there you
Okay.
go.
You see, you just said it. You just said it, and
There
look
you
at
go.
that.
Yeah.
It's and this is what we're going to,
Yeah.
because a lot of people are doing these things and they
I'm
have
not
no
aware.
understanding of what it is that they're doing. And
Yes.
we get you. We understand that, you're coming away, or many people are moving away from Christianity because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't line up. It's a fractured idea. It's misaligned in so many different ways. You learn one thing and it's completely opposite. The beautiful thing, you look at the scriptures, and it talks about keeping a feast of unleavened bread, and what do? They have hot cross bun, you know the feast of unleavened bread, and they have hot cross buns, which
Yeah.
is not even in there. So of course, people are going to be confused about what's written there, because
Exactly.
the practices that they're practicing has no basis in the book. So don't look at the book and say, oh my goodness, the book is wrong and it's demonic. It's the people that are using the book to
Right.
teach, and they're not teaching what's in there. They're teaching you something that they want you to do, which is worship their God.
Well, first of
Right.
all, they have no right to teach from the book. We are the only ones with that authority. That's
Yes.
the first mistake that they're making. And if you don't have the right to teach, then how are you going to understand what's there? You can't
Yeah.
give what you don't have. It is simple as that. Everybody wants to be the professor or the whatever, but it's better to be the student. I am,
Yes.
and my
Yes.
elder is a professor. We don't call him that, but that's
We're getting quite a few comments, and I really do appreciate you guys' input, because this is what the discussion is all about. Because when you're asking the questions or even making the statements or comment, it helps to edify everybody else. And this is such a good point. It says
yeah.
here, in Trinidad, the origin of Carnival was based on the freedom of the slaves, and the costumes was to mimic the slave masters. It then turned into this awful thing. I completely agree. It's really demonic. It really is. You have like the masquerade, you have the masks that people wear. It's like all of this. I think one thing we fail to look at, okay, is the nature of these things. Where are they coming from? Why are they so similar in their practices?
Yes.
Why are they seem so alike? They seem so familiar, right? They are dealing with familiar spirits. They are dealing with spirits that they know. This is spirits of the dead. But where is this practice coming from?
Yeah, here's another one. Is there a difference between numerology and astrology? I would say no, they're identical. It's just that one is using numbers and the other is using the planetary
Yeah, the
planet.
stars, and right.
Yeah,
And the funny thing is, again, with Christianity, they take the book, our book, especially the King James version of the Bible, which does not belong to them, and they're
that's
not teaching you from there. But when you read the book, you realize that you're not supposed to be doing all of these things.
that's
There
right.
is a law of clean and unclean, a law of separation, right? That helps to guide us. So when you hear about people messing with blood and stuff, it's they don't understand that law. They don't understand the law of separation.
Yes.
Thank you very much, JM.
Yeah, JM, thank you so much.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Oh,
And
thank you,
thank you,
GK. Thank
Pain,
you.
G-Pain.
Thank
Appreciate your
you so
donation.
much.
Yes. You see, a lot of things that people do not understand or they twist because they're trying to impress an audience with by themselves or with their knowledge rather than we use the scriptures to glorify the God of Israel and
Amen.
to follow his instruction.
Amen to that. Yes.
We don't
That's
try
what
to
it's
impress
about.
people.
Finding a way of glorifying the God of Israel. That's
Exactly.
what it's about.
And
Yes.
and these presentations are to help individuals. And to tell you the truth, I learn a lot personally from these
Yes.
presentations. But let's go to the next slide there.
Okay. So this was quite interesting because, of course, when you type witchcraft or something, you always see snakes. I hate snakes. Oh my gosh. Just really just creeps me out. And I know a lot of people feel the same way. And I think because of the deceptive nature of the snake. But you'll find that a lot of people gravitate to the snakes. And I just found this scripture quite interesting. I was speaking
Right.
to one of the ministers yesterday, Minister Charmaine, and we were looking at this scripture. Was it yesterday or the day before? And I thought to myself, this is just wow. You know what? Look at what's happening here. It says, okay, so this is Jeremiah. Poor Jeremiah, he's got a message to take, and it's so heavy because he's taking a message to his own people, and they shun him and they cast him aside, and they treat him so bad, but he's the messenger, right? It was such a tough message. And this was before, the Israelites, the children of Israel in Judea, they went into captivity, into Babylon, right? So this is before that 70 years of captivity. But it says here, for behold, I will send serpents, cockatrice. We were looking at trying to figure out what this cockatrice is. It seemed like it's a combination of a bird and a being with that looks like a snake. I don't know.
It looks like a dragon.
Yes, it's like a dragon. But it was really quite interesting. But it says here, for behold, I will send serpents and cockatrice among you. Listen, which will not be charmed, and they shall bite you, save the Lord. This was really quite interesting because, the God of Israel understood that, it was possible. And of course, a lot of people are doing it now to charm these like creatures. But he's like, you know what? He saw the evil that they were doing. It's like, oh, you think you're going to go ahead and try and charm these things? No, I'm going to send them and they're going to bite you. You can't charm this. You can't, subdue these creatures. They will attack you, and this is the practices of the people. And this is the thing that got us in trouble. We kept going after other gods. We kept worshiping other gods. We kept we built groves. We built, altars to other gods. We baked cakes to the Queen of Heaven. It's like, what the heck are we doing? And this is why we went into captivity in the first place. And this is the point that we're trying to get at. Everybody thinks that they're going back to something spiritual and it's going to elevate them in their spiritual world. Well, look where it's coming from. It's coming from a place where it is not elevated. And that's what the kind of practice that you want to bring into your life. And this is the thing that got us here in the first place.
Right. And that's the point we were making earlier.
Sorry.
Okay. No, it's true. When you made the analogy with us floating, right? This is what I was thinking, because notice the snake will not hurt her because she probably has a covenant with death. And I think
the people were also serpents. Beware. Yes.
Exactly.
I'm telling you.
For you and I, it will bite us because we were violating our covenant. In other words, what's good for them will be terrible for us. And we have to remember that always. It is not about skin complexion. It is about who you serve, who called us to serve the service. We have a point here. What I find to be, this is from Pain, what I find to be funny is that all the people I know that have engaged in witchcraft and worship of the dead tend to develop psychological issues. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because
that's what happens when you go into the ocean and you have no anchor.
Yeah.
And you're dabbling in places you shouldn't be. You have no business being. That's what happens,
It's very psychological because you have to have that spiritual alignment. If you're going to do voodoo or whatever, you have to have that connection with that demonic force. If you don't, then things are going to backfire. And
it will backfire regardless of whether
but eventually it will.
You are causing trauma in your life and causing trauma in the lives of those around you, and you really don't have an idea of how this actually works, because there is a price to be paid when you start to tamper into that area. There is a price to be paid.
Everybody looks to Western Africa for these things, but these things go back to Babylonia. And the one point that I tell people all the time, do not look at skin complexion. Do not look at the color, because we have, look, I tell people, this is not the best example, but it's the one that I remember. Mandela was not from the same racial, if you can use that term, origin as Buthelezi, but they both look alike. So you have Hamites, which is Buthelezi, and
Mm.
Mandela, which is Shemitic.
You're right.
So we have to always remember that Noah had three sons. This man, a so-called black man, if you want to call him that, had three black boys. And that's what we are. We came out of that. So we cannot go by appearance. We have to go by the God they serve. The
Right.
Hamites serve their God, and the Shemites serve their God, but we were called to serve the God of Abraham, the God of
I
Isaac, and the God of
Yes, I love this comment.
yeah.
Skin color is certainly a distraction. It is.
Yes.
And you know what? There's a video that I used to watch, a channel that I used to watch. It was called, I think it's called Home Team or something.
Mhm.
And this gentleman, he was trying to look at the reason why he believes that the children of slavery were not descendants of Israel. Okay. And one of the things he was saying is because one of the places that the children of Israel were taken from was the old kingdom of, I think it was Judah, which is one of those kingdoms. And this is one of the places where the slaves were taken from.
Mhm.
But what he was saying is that within that kingdom, they used to do snake worshipping,
Yeah.
right? And I was thinking to myself, you know what? That doesn't prove nothing because it goes back to the point I mentioned earlier that the children of Israel did all of that. They did all of those terrible things. They worshiped snake. They worshiped all the things that they were not supposed to. They followed the way of the oppressors. Remember, when we came out of the first Egypt, we came out with a multitude, a mixed multitude, and we followed their ways. You know, when the multitudes were murmuring, we started to murmur with them. When they,
Yes.
you know, they came up with the idea of building a calf, we gave them everything that we had to build the calf. It's like,
Mhm.
why, Israel, what are you doing? You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
It's like, what are we doing? But
And,
this is what was happening. So this guy is like, oh well, there can't be, you know, this can't be Israel because they were snake worshippers. Well, hello, there's a
no.
reason why we're in captivity to begin with. You
We
know?
have that propensity to follow, as you said
Yeah.
earlier, to serve. And
To serve,
yeah,
yes, not so much to follow, but to serve other
yeah.
gods.
Well, we follow because it becomes a socially acceptable. It
Mhm.
becomes the in thing to do, so to speak. We want to have fun because they seem to have more
You know,
fun.
the reason why I don't subscribe to the fact that they followed,
Uh-huh.
only because people follow Israel. They follow
That
us
is
in our
true.
good and
That's the
bad
point I was
ways, right?
making.
We are pretty much leaders in the things that we do. We lead
Yes.
in bad things, though. That's the problem.
That's the issue right there,
Right.
because you
But we
see, this
serve,
is where I was
right?
going.
We serve
Because
us.
I see people following us today in the
Mm,
fashion industry. But
mm,
what they don't understand is that we are
mm.
following them also. When I say we, I'm talking about the Jacobites. I'm not talking about us,
Yes.
because we are supposed to lead because everybody looks to us. And we
Yes.
don't understand that. And this is something that we want to drive across to make clear. We
Mm.
are the leaders in the world. It's the God of Israel and his heavenly host. Then on earth,
Yes.
it would be us, and everybody else would follow our example. And then the world
Right.
would be better. So
Okay.
here's another slide anyway.
This one is really quite interesting. I was kind of like blown away with everybody burning sage. So this is the pictures that you're seeing here. You're seeing a lot of working with the fowl. You know, some black fowl, some white fowl. You know, and I was like looking at these pictures, like, wow, this is crazy. But where is this coming from? You know, where is the fowl
It's
coming from? You know
it's
what I
very
read?
go ahead.
I'll tell you one thing that I read, which was really quite intriguing. The reason why a lot of people use the fowl for their demonic or black magic or whatever it is that they do,
Mhm.
it, this is really ridiculous. But apparently, it comes from the time when Peter denied Jesus the Christ 3 times, and the
Ah,
cock crowed.
now you
Okay,
tell me that. I didn't know that.
okay, okay. All right.
The
But
cock crowed
why
three
are you
times.
cutting the neck and doing all this blood thing and squirting
Wow.
it and Look, what the heck is this guy doing? He's got the,
Makes
you
no
know,
sense.
it's like, my goodness, these people
Wow.
are really,
That is dumb.
really into it, right?
It's really dumb.
Again, when we read the scriptures, it is quite clear the things that we are to do and the not to do. And I love this one in Deuteronomy 18. And, you guys, you can certainly read it for yourself. And actually, anything that you see here, please go research it for yourself. It's out there. It's nothing that, Elder Michael and I cooking up for you guys. It's out there.
Yes.
Research it for yourself.
I like the fact, Officer Charmaine, I like the fact that you have the Khazar here using the West African
Hey,
tradition.
as I
Right?
said to you, did I not tell you that they are following?
Yeah. So,
following. Everybody follows
exactly
strange customs.
And maybe that's where the Hebrew Israelites get the connection from. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm not criticizing.
I'm going to read Deuteronomy 18. Right? Okay. It says there shall not be found. Okay, this is the God of Israel talking to his people. Okay. This is the God of Israel talking to his people. So, guys, if this appeals to you, understand what the God of Israel is saying, right? It says, there shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire. We spoke about this a few months ago. Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, right? So this is very clear. People are so proud to call themselves a witch today. Right. It's like, oh my goodness.
And these are people, Officer Charmaine, maybe we should explain a little bit, because sometimes people don't quite get it. You go and they read your palm to tell you.
Not just that, they do all kinds of stuff.
They read your tea leaves. Do they read coffee leaves? Coffee too? I don't know.
Yeah, coffee as well. They read your coffee granule.
Yeah.
Somebody tried to read my coffee once, and it was like so bizarre. It's like, what are you doing? And then they were like, oh, you got to turn over the cup, and they were trying to. It's like, no, it's okay. I like to drink my coffee. I'm not to read it. I read books, okay? Yes. And so I put my tissue there and like messed it up. That to me is just like messed up. It's like, wow. But anyway, it says here, or a charmer or a consulter with familiar spirits, right? Yes. These guys are talking about, Elder Andrew was speaking earlier, and he was talking about knowing some, this group of Rastafarians, and they're, the message that they're talking about is that, why not get help from, our ancestors? Who would more better protect you than our ancestors? I'm thinking, whoa, that is very convincing. But what does it say here? It says here, this is the thing that you should not be found among you, which includes familiar spirits, or wizards, or necromancers. Okay, for all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. Abomination, that's such a beautiful word to describe what this actually is.
That's right.
And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God does drive them out from before thee.
Yes.
Thou shalt be perfect with the Lord thy God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't say anything more.
Yeah.
I mean,
perfect. So, there's about the Rasta man. I know that a lot of people follow that tradition with the ganja and the hair styles, and
okay. Keep going. It's okay. I was going to say.
Yeah, we did some research.
Somebody has a question. Sorry.
And we'll get to that in a minute. And we noticed that the god Ganja, she came as water. The mythology is she came as rain on her husbands or her boyfriends, and he didn't dry his hair because he left it like that, and it grew long. And of course, he smoked the ganja and so on and so forth. The point I'm making is that smoking of that drug is connected with her. And sometimes when the hair is the way it is, it's also connected to some extent if they use the two together. You can still have your hair without smoking that. That's not a problem. So these are things that people don't understand. And that was attributed to the Rastaman, particularly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's really unfortunate because, as you said, you know, when you're smoking those substances, it messes with your spirituality. And
Yes.
again, it's going into the spiritual realm without, you know, the God of Israel's guide, you know, guiding you through that. It's like
Right.
you're tampering with something that, you know, can really lead
Yes.
to a mental disorder later on. Who
Exactly.
knows? You know. But there was a question here. It says, my last question is, what is the difference between traditional Satanism and any religion other than the God of Israel has sent down?
Well, there's only one religion, as we said before, according to the Bible, and
Yeah.
that would be the service of the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. That's what we do. We're Israelites. Everything else that you engage in, as if you call it religious, if you're dabbling with the spiritual element, that would be satanic. That
Yeah.
would be demonic.
But remember, on Michael, once upon a time, and you know, you'll see that in a lot of movies like Apocalypto and what have you. You know, a lot of people used to worship the sun, and we spoke about this as well.
Yes.
Now, all the stuff that we've done kind of ties into this in a very intrinsic way. It ties into it just very deeply. But a lot of cultures in the world used to worship the sun, and they would do dances for the rain. And it's not just you know, people think, oh, this is native Indian. No, a lot of cultures around the world. This was just the nature of how people behave. You know,
Right.
they saw the sun going down and said, oh my goodness, is it going to come up the next day? So before the end of the day, they have to do a little dance, and then you know the sun comes back up. It's like, you see, look what we done. You know, we danced and the sun's back up. So the things that they did, the practices that they did, kind of confirmed the things that were happening around them because they didn't really have the understanding
Right.
of, you know, the work of the God of Israel, for example.
And
But
for them, to your point, for them it's okay because they don't have a
but
covenant with the God of Israel.
but this is what I'm getting at, because
Yes.
when you see all these different like cultures doing the same thing, you know, they're sacrificing, they have like a billion different gods, you know, a god for your left ear, a god for your right, a god for your big toe, you know, they have, you know, they have so many things, you know, they're sacrificing their children, passing their children over the fire, you know, they're sacrificing the virgins, they're doing all these things, and they're doing very debased things as well. So grotesque. I'm not even going to mention half of them because it really is grotesque.
Yes.
But the thing is, the God of Israel pulled us out of that
That's right.
cesspit. He
Yeah.
separated us from that. So
That's right.
when you're asking what is the difference is the God of Israel has taken us away from all of these different forms of worshiping and celebrations and rituals to set us aside,
Right.
giving us a contract to say, this is what you do, this is what you don't do. If you do this, then this is going to happen. If you do this, then this is going to happen. So you get your blessings and your curses, right? But it's very clear, you know, you may have the ability to do certain things, but you're not supposed to do that. You know, you may be to line up the stars or whatever, but this is not our custom, you know.
Right.
Leave that to
Exactly.
the Egyptians, leave that to
Yeah.
the Babylonians, leave that to the Sumerians. Separate yourself. And this is
Right.
what is the difference. The God
And
of Israel has separated us.
that
So
speaks
go
to
ahead.
the next question: is diversity a plan of the lie to keep Jacobites mixed into the world, and is
Yes,
God because of the Bible talks about a super separation? Exactly. That's
yes,
you've answered the question.
yes.
Because yeah, we have to stay in our lane. If we
Mhm.
have a covenant with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we have to fulfill that mandate. If you don't have a covenant, then do whatever you have to do. We can't speak to your behavior if you are not part of that
Mm.
covenant.
Yes. No, absolutely. And you know that's an excellent point, because it goes back to when we were talking about the Bible, and because they could not control the King James version of the Bible, they went and they flood the market with so many different other versions just
Exactly.
to cause confusion.
Confusion. Yeah.
So this slide is very interesting. Now, many of you know that the Israelite nation, as a organization, as a body, finally went to Virginia to commemorate the 400-year anniversary of
The end of
enslavement.
the
Right? We understood that from 1619 to 2019, that was a 400-year period. And we went down there, just to remember the things that has happened to us, to bring awareness to what took place, and, to look at how we can get together to find a real solution to move forward, right? Yeah. But then we find people like this, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know how you feel about this, but you have, this is another one of those ancestral things, or ancestral worship. And I remember there were a whole bunch of people, primarily women, again, all dressed in white. I remember from even the hotels and, the dining hall. And I walked past a whole group of them. I was like, oh my goodness, what the heck's going on here? But they were all dressed, and some of them were down at the sites in the water. I don't know if they were doing a baptism or whatever. It was highly disturbing, right? So this picture is really based on, the members. They call themselves the African Queen Mothers, right? They participate in a sunrise service and a spiritual cleansing ceremony in remembering of the 400 years anniversary of the arrival of the first enslaved Africans in Virginia, in Hampton, Virginia, August 24th, 2019. So, guys, this is what it's basically saying, that we have a battle. The battle is fierce, and every single way you return, you're going to have this battle. There's always an opposition. And this is a clear example of that.
And we don't know who they are. They could be descendants of the ones that sold us, into slavery. We don't know. Whatever the case.
Yeah, but I think these are children of Jacob. These
are. So? I don't want to speculate, but
no, these are. There's a lot of Jacobites going into this kind of stuff. So definitely,
they're doing what they're supposed to do. Okay, James is asking, this is very important to me. It is no one but the God of Israel for his children, a father's instruction. Yeah. I mean, we have to always remember your father knows best, right? And we follow in his footsteps. If he says this is what you do, then if you disagree with your father, again, what does that say about you? It means that you are laying the foundation for disagreement between you and your own children. You don't want to do that, because so we reap accordingly, and this is very important. So we want to maintain that.
Wonderful point. I don't think people really look at that. That's a really good point, because what you're essentially saying is that you're not following the God of Israel's instructions. So why are you so up in arms when your children are not following your instructions?
Exactly. You're sowing seeds for your own
example. You're not setting an example. Right. You're working against him. So your children will work against you, That's so correct. Wow. That's a really interesting point. Thank you. That was very interesting. So
next slide.
So as the slide before, it talks about African Queen Mothers. So they're basically saying that what they are doing is coming from Africa. So the idea of a lot of these philosophies that we have spoken about, the voodoo type philosophies, the witchcraft, the comfort, the necromancy, whatever it is, they are all stemming from Africa. And a lot of people are holding true to that, to say, well, we all came from Africa, we have to turn back to the religion of our forefathers or our ancestors, and this is why they are doing the things that they are doing. But I want to show you here, I had another wonderful conversation just yesterday, actually, with another wonderful young lady. Her name is Safia, and she enlightened me with some of the places that you guys, if you don't believe what we're saying today, you can actually go out there and look at it for yourself. Yes. But she says that these are confirmed places containing proof of Israelite practices. So we have a list of these places, and the one that I guess she's very familiar with is the museum in Barbados. There is the Slavery Museum in Liverpool, England. There's the British Library, of course. There's so much stuff out there, guys. Yes. There's Granada, the Heritage Museum. There's the National Museum of St. Kitts. So if you guys are in the region of St. Kitts, you can go to that museum and you'll see in their documentation or whatever it is that they have there, remnants of Israelite practices there. And there's also the Museum of African Heritage in Guyana. Now, a lot of this stuff is coming out. So I applaud you to go out there and start looking at these things. And you know what? It will be so great if you go out there and you find something. You know, I'm going to hold this to you. If you go out there and you find something, take a picture,
Yes.
date, time, location, right?
Yes.
And send it to us.
Yes.
Why don't we build a repository of all the Israelite practices that's actually documented out there in these different establishments? I think that would be so fantastic.
Excellent idea.
You know,
because a lot of these things could change overnight. You know, sometimes you find something on the internet, and then you go back and it's gone, right? So you take it when you get it, because I know for a fact that they had the oldest synagogue in the Western Hemisphere in Barbados, or one of the oldest. That's right. But everybody was a Christian. How did that work?
How is that possible? Well, it goes a little bit deeper. Michael, I'm going to just change the blinds here because I can see the sun is just like coming.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Everything. So if you just want to read that statement just there, and I'm just going to step away just for a sec.
Yeah, it says basic research of our history takes us back to Africa. So many of us today believe that our culture is African. What kind of research can we do to dig deeper and come to the conclusion of whom we are? And that's what Officer Charmaine was saying, that where you do find these references. I remembered as a boy, when I would go to school, I would walk to the bus terminal and I would always walk in Synagogue Lane. But I had no idea that we were Israelites, that we worshipped or did our Bible studies in the synagogue, because these things were not told. And then I remembered, once I started to figure out like how many, the synagogue structure of the worship, then the Khazars came and bought all of them, including the graves.
Yes.
So if you go there today, you will see that they own everything.
Yes.
And they put that into their history.
Yes, and
nothing to do with them.
And I have a very similar story. I went to visit Cochin in India, in Kerala.
Yeah.
This is southern India, because I heard about the remnants of Israel being there, and I went to the same place. It was like it was called Jew City or something, and they had a market there, and a synagogue that they had built there. And I walked to the old synagogue, and at the back you can see through the fencing, and you can see like the graves. And I'm thinking to myself, it was kind of confusing to me. Two things was confusing. One, they had the tetragrammaton, the so-called Hebrew writing on there. Okay. Yeah. And the second thing I saw, there were so many double triangles. I'm like, what did they do to this place? Wow. They pretty much destroyed it. So they destroyed the truth of it, because we know that they were there at one point in time. Israel was there at one point in time.
Everywhere.
But yes, exactly. But you can see that the information was distorted because of what these guys have come out there and done, which is like really very sad. But there is information still available for you to go out and have a look. And the same young lady that I was speaking about earlier, if we go to the next slide, we can actually see it talks about some of her experiences. Now, she says that a lot of the information that she found was based on European traders, overseers, the Christian priests, the naturalists, the explorers, etc. So what they used to do, and this is a fact because, I think when we spoke about Israel being in Spain and Portugal, we read a lot about this as well, right?
Yes.
But she was saying that they would document any movements which seem peculiar, for the peculiar treasures, us, right?
Yes.
So these are things they were looking at. Oh my goodness. They seem to be praying to the east all the time, or worshipping east and burying their dead facing the east, and they're always east or southeast, but never never northeast or north or west.
Right.
It's like, this is us, guys. So when those guys tell you about, oh yes, we've got to claim our African ancestry, worshipping and whatever, no, look deeper. What they're seeing is very surfacey. Everything that they're looking at is very surfacey, right?
Yeah.
Look deeper, because you will find this kind of information. People, we are the most studied people in the world.
Exactly.
Right? People use us as the ruler based on every other culture and every other nation, right?
Yes.
So again, you look at this, they're documenting, oh, look, they're praying towards the east.
Yes.
It says here that I am yet to find any enslaved people who worshipped during a full moon. Oh, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Look, this is something that she found. I'm yet to find any enslaved people who worship during the full moon. New moon, yes, but not a full moon.
That's
Again,
yes.
This is very interesting.
Yeah.
And I've got another reference here. I know many of you guys know this book, which is a Hebrewism in West Africa. And this is a book by Joseph J. Williams. There's a lot of things in this book I do not like.
Yes, I agree.
There's a lot of things I don't like. I don't like a lot of the ways he portray Israel, or
but he was trying to portray Israel as Europeans.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of distortion in there.
Of course.
But even, as we mentioned before, that when you go to certain parts of West Africa, you will find our culture. You will find that they will circumcise for some reason. They'll do, they'll do different things. They may worship on a Friday or Saturday. They may not have their children come out on a given day, after birth. Maybe it'll be 8 days or 9 days. I know in Guyana, for example, it is 9 days, right? They would have the baby in the house, and then, on the 9th day, then they'll show it everybody. Or that used to be the custom. I don't know if it still is. But again, for the most part, especially in a lot of places in Africa, it's because we were there and people copied our customs and our way of life and what we used to do. So when you find that, you may be confused and think, oh well, why are they doing this here? Half the time they don't even know why they're doing it. They're just doing it, right?
True.
But for the most part, it's because they were copying our culture. They were copying our way of life. And you can see that we took a lot of this practice even to the New Egypt.
Yeah, it all has to do with our enslavement. And I think that sometimes we think that slavery is only about picking cotton. No, it is about keeping us dumb concerning our heritage, because the less we know about ourselves, the more they can dominate us. They can have control into our thought process. And then the next thing you know, we can't pass on that tradition, that we can't pass that culture on to our children. So slavery to me it is more than just the pain of master's whip. Slavery is ignorance of self. And the enemy is in his rightful position to make that a possibility, because we disobeyed our father. We did not do as he commanded us to do. And these are important lessons. They may seem simple, but they go a long way.
They go a really long way.
Yeah.
They go
400 years of ignorance.
400 years. And it's like I'm really, sometimes I'm still kind of gobsmacked at the fact that our history was so erased, so annihilated.
Yeah.
They did such a number on us, and it's so deep and absolutely terrifying, because if you think that they can actually erase the identity of a complete people, what else can they do?
Yeah, exactly.
And they've done so many things. They tell you, oh, Jesus was born on 25th of December, and everybody believes. It's like, it's like if you believe that, you believe anything, and then you never see who we are.
The cleverness of them is the fact that they don't just say that; they have the gifts to prove it. You see what I'm saying?
Right. They manufacture the proof.
Exactly.
They manufacture.
And we buy into that. And not only that, they give you that day off from work. So you can't beat that.
Okay. Another great and powerful manufacturing. And I was always in two minds whether we should even go there or not. Okay, is the very fact that people cannot get it around their heads
Yes.
that Ashkenaz, okay,
Yeah.
or even the Khazars, they are way in Europe, way there.
Oh yeah.
And everybody knows that they were transported from those locations into Jerusalem. And people talk about them as though they were there all the time. I'm like, okay, but I'm
It's
not
a
going to go
joke.
there. I'm
Yeah.
just finding it really, I'm just blown away that, the.
In order to understand that, we have to understand Freemasonry and how it
Oh,
works, the structure of it. And a lot of people don't. They underestimate the whole structure. And the Masons will tell you, as above, so below. And people think because they say as above, they're talking about heaven. No, they're talking about this part, the spirit that controls this head will control the body, and they will make sure that you have the spirit, the familiar spirit, or make it accessible to you.
mm,
That's a different chapter for another day. But I just want to
yes,
show people there would be no Judaism without
yeah,
Freemasonry and Christianity and working
okay.
together as one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there's another slide that this young lady brought my attention to, and it says here, the use of the word Israel was used by the enslaved long before reading and writing was permitted. And we spoke about reading and writing as well. So the term itself was used before learning to read or write. And
Okay.
she says, well, I'm not sure if she said this, but I made a change here, but it says here, in Barbados, Israel was used not just by the Ashkenazi, because I refuse to use the other words, not just by
Right.
the Ashkenazi, but by the enslaved people and written on tombstones. So
Yeah.
Israel, again, that term was used to identify the slaves that were in Barbados. So
Yeah.
this again is another incredible point. I mean, guys, like I said, if you have access to any of this information, please take a picture, put your date, time, location, and you know what? We really appreciate it. We're going to start building a nice repository of all this information.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Okay.
documentation, especially from Britain, concerning that because
Yes.
most of the slaves that settled in Barbados came from Brazil,
Yes.
and they came to Brazil from Spain. So from
Yes.
Spain to Brazil to Barbados, and they built the synagogue, like I said, one of the
Right.
oldest in the Western Hemisphere.
Well, and that's an important point because yes, Brazil was a large port of, there was a lot of slaves there, guys. So,
Yes, yes,
people forget that. They think they just look at the Caribbean, but you got pretty much all of South America,
that's
pretty
right.
much, especially
Yes,
in Brazil and the Guyanas, right? So this is
that's
where our forefathers were. So it's like ignorance of self is the Jacobites' number one killer. Amen.
exactly.
Because if you knew who you were, you will be praising the God of Israel, looking after your brethren and looking after yourself as well.
And
Um,
not only that, but the whole thing is that trust factor. We lack so much as so-called Black people. If
mm,
we could come back to helping, as you said, one another and building that trust element. I remembered when I was a boy, we didn't have the bank accounts. We had the turns where we trusted. We put our money into one component, and everyone took a turn. So you'll take $1,000 out every month or whatever, and it will
yeah,
circulate around the entire neighborhood. But today,
right,
people take their thousand and disappear. But
right.
they don't put anything back. The trust factor is not there. So this is why we go through these presentations to let you know that we're all one family serving the same Father and
Yes.
rely on each other. But we have to bring that
And
aspect back.
I think one of the advantage, we've often looked at it as a disadvantage because we would all love to have been brought up in this truth from from the time we were babies, but
Yeah,
we can actually sit back and say we understand where you're coming from because many of us were there. We understand what you're going through because many of us were there. We've had similar experiences, so we can confidently sit here and confidently say that we get where you are, and we know where you need to be, and this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to help
Very,
you on that path to come here, and this is the only advantage that I can actually see of us being where we are today.
it's a very important point. It's because I've seen it with my own eyes. I
Mm,
have seen, we can tell the difference sometimes between the Caribbean and the others. We could
mm,
tell, I remember we never passed each other on the street, especially an older person, male or
mm,
female, without greeting them. Even though you may not have known them. And as a matter of fact, I had a friend one time who I greeted this Jamaican guy. I didn't know him, and the guy, I think he was from Philippines or something. He said, "Do you know that gentleman?" I go, "No, I don't." He goes, "Why did
mm.
you know him?" I say, "Our spirit know each other." That was my
Yeah,
response. He
right.
didn't know what the hell I was talking about. But our
Yeah,
spirit greeted each other, even though I didn't know him physically. I stood, said, "Good morning, sir," or "Good afternoon," whatever time it was.
yeah,
And that is a big thing for us because we didn't pass our senior citizens and don't say good afternoon or good morning or what have you. It's
right.
respect, right?
Yes, no, absolutely. Now we have James Gibbs. He says, "You are right, Elder Michael. I was once a Mason. That's why I came out of there."
Wow.
Uh, James, congratulations to you.
Thanks for getting out.
Congratulations.
Wow.
And, I pray that this journey that you're on is fruitful and that you would never fall off, fall off the path, that you'll continue on to see, the riches of Israel, of being an Israelite, walking in the truth, because the truth, there's nothing else but the truth. So
Yeah,
I'm very glad that
not
you
only that, but
came out.
when I first came back to Israel, my elder Shadrach,
Mhm.
he appointed me to do the research,
Mm,
and one of the books that I had to research was Morals and Dogma, and I
mhm.
learned a lot from that
Yep.
book. Charmaine, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
There is so
Mm,
much there, and
mm,
back in the day when I got that book,
mm.
the Masons weren't allowed
But,
to share that book with anybody.
but that's what I'm saying, Elder
But in the
Michael.
past,
Everything is
had to go back.
out.
Yeah, everything is out now.
Everything is out. So
Yeah,
that's why there's so much confusion.
yeah. You're
You
talking
know,
40 years ago when you weren't allowed to read what they were doing privately. Now we know
right.
all their business.
So this goes to one of the stories. I put these two stories up because I think these two stories are so incredible. Right. The first one is about Elijah and Naaman. Guys, I don't know how much we're going to go into this, but take time out, take down these
Yeah,
scriptures and go and read them because they're so fascinating. Okay. And the second
right.
one is about King Saul and the woman with the familiar spirits. Now, what I want to say about the first one, and this is in Second Kings chapter 5, just to give you a bit of a synopsis. Now you have Naaman, which is a general, I think, of the Syrian army. Okay, and he had leprosy, and it took a little girl, a little Israelite girl, right, to say to her mistress, you know what? I know how, your husband, Mr. Naaman, can actually get cured.
Mhm.
I know how he can
Yeah,
get cured. He can go to Israel. you know.
yeah,
And so I guess he sent somebody to the king at the time. I believe it was Ahab, and Ahab's like, "What the heck is going on? I can't cure anybody of leprosy." It's almost as though
right.
you're trying to provoke a war or something because you're asking the impossible. And then Elisha, he gets wind of this. He hears about this trying thing, right? And he says, just send him over here. Send him to me. I'll sort him out. And so Naaman,
Right.
he sends his guys to Elisha, and Elisha says, "Well, just tell him to go and dunk in the Jordan 7 times, and you'll be fine. Don't worry about it." He didn't even go himself. Okay, he just sent some guys.
Yeah.
You just tell him to do this, right? And then Naaman's like,
Mhm.
what is this? Are the rivers, the waters of wherever he was, aren't they like 10 times better
Better.
than the Jordan? But the
Yeah,
thing here is he was expecting like drama, right? And this is our
exactly.
people. That's why
Yeah.
they go after all these things. They go after the little crystals and stuff because he's expecting, the cutting of the chicken neck, probably spitting some rum on the fire, maybe a little dance or two. This is what he's
Yeah.
expecting. He's expecting a huge ritual. But
Yeah.
Elisha says, no, just tell him to go jump in the water 7 times and he'll be fine. That to me was really quite astonishing. And I see that as our people today, going after the glitter, the Christmas tree with all the little ornaments, So to me,
You
that's
know what people do today? Sorry. Today they do not understand the importance of words, especially the words of the Bible. These are not
right,
ordinary words. We sometimes we don't know the state of mind that the people were in when they wrote or when they spoke. You see, it could be a highly spiritual state. And even today, we still have an impact. I remembered I could pick up a book sometimes, and I could see what was real and what was channeled. And what I mean by that, there are certain books that you could read, and you can see that the person that wrote that book, let's just say they weren't physical. They were writing from a demon or another spirit. Let's put it that way. And you
right,
could see what they're doing. And sometimes you can pick up on that. You see, I don't know. I can't explain how I knew these things, but I can see it.
right,
And
right,
I would put away that book because I know that is not what really happened. That was
right.
channeled
Yes,
by spirit to an
yes.
author.
Yeah,
But the real author,
it gets so
yeah,
very deep and it gets very
yeah,
destructive and extremely
exactly.
disturbing because, as
Yeah,
I said before, you're going into areas that you should not be going. And yes, it can do a
exactly.
number on your mind, but
So
you look
reading
at
a psalm,
mm,
for instance, could have a healing process or can
mm,
create a healing process. It may not happen right there and then, but the process
mm,
could begin. That's
yes.
what I wanted to
No,
say.
absolutely. Because, one of the beautiful things, and this is why we say that the King James Version of the Bible is written for us, about us, by us. It is a
Right.
biography of our forefathers, what they had
That's
experienced, how they
right.
interacted with the God of Israel, what they did
Right.
when they were in time of trouble, what they did during the time, when they won their battles, what got them into trouble in the first place. And,
Right.
we have so many examples, right? And another one, was
Right.
King Saul and the woman with a familiar spirit. King Saul, he was the guy that said to everybody, if you got a familiar spirit, you have to be done away with. And we know what done away with meant, back in those days. You were done away with. You were not allowed to practice. You couldn't be a witch or a necromancer or any of these things. But when he fell out of favor with the God of Israel, what does he do? That
That's
is
exactly
such a
not.
diabolical crime,
Yes.
right? He goes to a woman with a familiar spirit to get her to call up Samuel, and the God of
Yes.
Israel had already rejected him. Why? Because time and time again, he was disobedient. And we know, according to the scriptures, it says disobedience is like witchcraft. So King
Exactly.
Saul, some people may say, oh, poor King Saul, but he was disobedient, man. He was disobedient time and time and time again to the point whereby he not only became that which he was trying to put away, he actually went out to seek that which he tried to
Yeah.
put away. So
And
that's
he
what the
shouldn't have been.
disobedience led him to the actual
Yeah.
witchcraft.
He shouldn't have been king at all in the first place. But that's another story.
I beg to differ, but the people asked for a king. The God of Israel proved a point. You know what I mean? This is what you asked for. This is what you got. So
Yeah.
such
You're
a
right.
life, eh?
Yes.
Wow, this
So
is
this whole presentation then, it gives us a perspective whereby we could understand what is taking place today, put it
yeah,
in its own um, put it in its own chapter, so to speak, because everything that you see or everything that is popular isn't necessarily what's right for us. So we have to put things in their own place and come back to who we are, to our
yes,
foundation, and to understand what is right for us and what is not right for us. Don't
exactly.
just embrace it because it's popular. This is the substance that we're trying to convey today.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And guys, you know, once again, I want to thank you for coming out and joining us. And you know what? We really enjoyed reading your comments. I'm sorry we couldn't get through to all of them. And you know, we're going to go back and read some of them later
That's
on.
right.
So don't
And we
worry about it.
appreciate your support,
But
both
please,
financially
you know,
and monetarily.
put stuff not just in the chats, but put them in the comment section. And don't forget to like. If you really need more information, there is a form attached to this video. So fill it out. You know, interact with somebody. You know, if you need that help on this path. And you know, we really appreciate everything that you've done. The comments was fantastic. And if there are any questions or concerns that you have with regards to what we were speaking about, please also put those in the comments. We would love to read them and interact with you.
Exactly.
So this has been an amazing time. Thank you. Thank you, our Elder Shadrach, once again. Thank you, councils around the world, because you know what? You guys inspire us. And remember to watch the Fridays and Saturdays. They are excellent discussions. And yes, we'll see you soon.
Peace.